Good night, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dialogue with the Diaspora. I am Diane Haylock. It has been very uplifting and inspiring to highlight the contributions by Belizeans in the diaspora to the development of our country. In this episode, we will be learning all about the Pathlight Belize program. Pathlight International is a registered non-governmental organization in the United States. Pathlight International established a Pathlight Belize program dedicated to promoting national sustainable development through education. Pathlight's vision is to empower children in Belize to receive a quality education, break free from poverty, and reach their God-given potential. I am so pleased to have two board members of Pathlight International, who are Belizeans, as our guests tonight. Irvin Henderson is a board member and the CEO of Pathlight International. He's responsible for developing and driving Pathlight's vision to transform Belize by educating and developing future leaders. In his day job, Irvin is the Chief Digital Officer for Small Business at US Bank, the fifth largest commercial bank in the United States. He has a bachelor's degree in economics and physics from Whittier College in California and an MBA in finance from Cornell University. Welcome to the show, Irvin.
Oh, thank you, Diane. Thank you very much.
Elvira Mendez is also a board member of Pathlight International and Pathlight Belize. And she is focused on bringing international funding agencies alongside Pathlight's mission to transform lives through education. Since 2013, Elvira has been serving as the counselor for Belize on the board of executive directors at the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB, in Washington, D.C. Elvira holds a master's degree in global policy from Johns Hopkins University in Washington, a master's degree in project management, and a master's degree in business administration, both from the Keller Graduate School of DeVry University in Washington. Elvira is married to Ambassador Nestor Mendez, the Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of American States. Welcome, Elvira. It is such a pleasure to see you as well.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having us.
Before we jump into Pathlight, we want to learn more about each of you and your Belizean connections. Let me start with you, Elvira. Tell us a bit about your family background in Belize and why and when you migrated to the U.S.
Thank you. I was born and raised in Orange Walk Town. I am the youngest of 12 children, which means I have a huge extended family. My mother died when I was only 9 months old, and I am forever grateful for one of my sisters, the fifth child of the family, that is Marta Melendez. She was the one who embraced the role of my mother. I studied in Belize, graduating with my bachelor's in business administration from the University of Belize. I left Belize 25 years ago. As you rightly mentioned, I married a well-known Belizean diplomat, and I left Belize in 1996 to accompany him on his first diplomatic posting to Guatemala. At that time, our son was only 1 month old and our daughter was 5 years. We returned to Belize briefly before heading to London, England for his second posting. During these two postings, I assumed the role of the household manager, and I was getting ready to enter the workforce in 1999 when we were transferred to Washington, D.C. for his third posting. I was excited about this diplomatic posting because I wanted to attend grad school without having to leave the kids behind, and was determined to do that while in DC. Our time in DC has been amazing and rewarding because I have had the opportunity to finish graduate school, start my career in the development field, and I've also used my skill sets of event planning, catering, and fundraising to help our beautiful Belize. As most Belizean women, I too was a juggler. I had to juggle with my household duties, and responsibilities, helping my school-age kids. And I praise God that they are now young adults. I was working full-time and studying part-time.
Okay, good. Elvira, let me come back to that part of it a little bit later. I want to bring Irvin into the discussion at this point. Let him tell us about his roots and when and how he ended up living in the US.
Yeah, thank you. So in some ways, really, I never left Belize. I live life vicariously. I have an identical twin, whom you know both of us, known
Yes.
us for a very long time. So Alvin runs Royal Mayan Shrimp Farm. And we left Belize together in 1988 to do college, undergrad in the States. When we were done with our undergrad studies, we came back to Belize. I went to work at the Ministry of Economic Development. This would have been 92. And he went to work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And in fact, Diane, when I was at the Ministry of Economic Development, I worked closely with your brother, Claude Haylock. So a little bit of history there. But I left Belize again to do my graduate studies around 96 and spent 2 years doing my master's at Cornell in upstate New York. And during that time, actually, I traveled back and forth to Belize. One of the things that I did was I consulted for the Banana Growers Association to raise EU money out of Brussels to fund equipment and all kinds of technical assistance for the industry. Then I went through a period really of just, I spent a couple of years on Wall Street in investment banking, and then I pursued technology. I've been pursuing technology. I live in Silicon Valley since 2004, worked at Yahoo in many roles, including leading Yahoo mobile products, and then ultimately starting a business, a separate business called Talek. One comment I would make is the Royal Mayan Shrimp Farm, actually, Al's business in Belize, came out of a lunch conversation with Mike Dunker in 98. And out of that, it was my business school project, got together with Al, and that became Royal Mayan Shrimp Farm. But about 4 years ago, with the company that I started, Talek, which was ultimately bought by US Bank, I began coming back into Belize with more intensity, set up an operation in Belmopan, which did IT support for Talek in the US, and then also became actively involved with Pathlight International. And that became a real important place for us to engage more deeply in educating future Belizeans. And by the way, a year and a half ago, I was in Washington, D.C., visiting the OES, actually the IDB, and I caught up with Elvira and Ambassador Nestor. And over that dinner, our whole conversation started about collaborating on Pathlight. So just really excited that Elvira is partnered on all of this work.
But Elvira, you have been at the IDB for quite some time, haven't you?
Yes, I've been at the IDB for 15 years. 7 years I was the chief of staff for the Office of Executive Directors. And then since 2013 as the counselor for Belize on the IDB board.
What has that experience been like for you, working as working with the executive director of the bank?
It was really rewarding when I entered that office because at the time Belize did not have an official representative. So my job was basically to look after, in general, the 6 countries. But I did notice that Belize would have to be considered under the executive director, which would rotate among the 5 countries. So just being there and seeing the access and opportunities for Belize, I made it a point to work closely with executive directors. And I was so happy when the opportunity arose for Belize to finally have a representative on the board.
Yeah, we haven't done very well overall in terms of having Belizeans represented on these various international and regional organizations, have we?
We have not, yes.
Yeah, so it's really good when we see our Belizeans like yourself, and also His Excellency Ambassador Nestor Mendez, you know, aspire for and successfully, you know, get to the level where he is at this point in time. Because, you know, we know that our Belizeans are extremely talented, you know, competent, but perhaps we don't do enough to push ourselves out there and get into some of these very important positions, you know, in the international arena.
No, no, I agree. And I think that it's important. In my regard, I'm very committed to promoting our country, defending Belize's interests. And when I say Belize's interests, it's the private sector and the public sector at this important financial institution.
So let's talk about Pathlight. I of course, in preparation for our show, read up a bit about it, and I mean, I'm fascinated, you know, to say the least, by the work that Pathlight is doing. Irvin, perhaps you can explain to us about Pathlight's origins. Where did it all begin? How and when did this NGO start? What was the inspiration?
You know, absolutely. So Pathlight actually has been around a long time, 10 years. And it was started by two families, the Goebel families and the Parcher families. And Roy Goebel would probably be known because he's the owner of Jaguar Creek. But he had an early idea about how you can, through education, transform a nation. And through the incremental investment in students, transform entire families. And so that became really the kernel of a bigger idea of how do we programmatically, whether it's teacher training,
but it started, forgive me, it started as an international organization, Pathlight International,
and it still is. It's a hybrid organization. Think of Pathlight International as more of the fundraising and marketing arm of Pathlight, and think of Pathlight Belize as more of the programmatic portion of Pathlight.
So the focus really is Belize itself,
absolutely,
and not necessarily other countries, other programs in other parts of the world.
Yeah, that may be a future ambition, but Pathlight International is solely focused at this point on Belize. That's right.
Okay, good. So what is the overall goal of Pathlight?
Yeah, so our big idea is to transform a nation through education. And we have two programs, the teacher training program and a sponsorship plus program. The teacher training program today actually already has significant scale. The budget.
So let's talk about that more in depth. What's happening there?
Yeah. So the teacher training program today, and in fact, we have a the summer program coming up on July 5th, reaches today over 20% of teachers in Belize. We do these continuous program development where we come alongside the government of Belize and the teachers in these modular training for teachers across the country. Any given year, and even in COVID, Dan, we were able to reach over 1,000 teachers through some hybrid model of just using Zoom and training programs.
In 1 year?
Yes, in 1 year. The program already has significant scale in terms of outreach, and our ambition is to reach 100% of teachers through these modules.
So how do you recruit the teachers? How do you get them involved, wanting to participate in the program?
Yeah, so we've been around 10 years, but we have a strategic partnership with the Ministry of Economic Development that goes back quite a few years now, over 4 years. We are, in many instances, part of the training arm in collaboration with the Ministry of Economic Development. We also work with international...
The Ministry of Economic Development?
I'm sorry, the Ministry of Education. I think of Economic
Okay.
Development because I spent time there. The Ministry of Education. And also, I mean, we have collaboration with like UNICEF. We've also had a CARSI grant. So we look for, and this is even in the conversations with Elvira at this point. Elvira and I are collaborating and looking at bringing international agencies to come alongside our work in country.
Elvira, how did you get involved?
Well, as Arv mentioned, we met over dinner, and he was the one that talked about what Pathlight has to do. They explained on the impact that it had in Belize. And for me, I was astonished to learn about Pathlight's mission because it was aligned to a dream I had on my bucket list for when I returned to Belize, especially the Student Plus program that they have, which is a wraparound support system for the students, offering them not only the financial support, but also with tutoring, the mentorship, and the overall help with the family as well. So when they asked me and invited me to be part of Pathlight, I was delighted.
You couldn't say no. Although I'm sure you had quite a lot on your plate already, but it's just one of those things that you just could not say no to.
That is,
If I could just say something on that, though, that night we had dinner in DC, and that night over dinner, Diane, it was amazing. Like we had actually the three of us, Ambassador as well. I mean, just had a shared vision for our country. And it was really powerful. There wasn't a lot of convincing with Elvira. Like she said, it was part of her own vision and kind of how she saw the future. So it was really a delightful dinner.
I'm just excited to be part of Pathlight.
So what is the structure and support system in Belize to execute these training programs?
Yeah, so
How does it happen? How does it happen? What is the mechanism here in Belize on the ground, that makes this all happen? Because, I mean, you are there, so who are the boots on the ground here in Belize doing the work?
Yeah, so somebody you know quite well, Adeli Katsim, is the executive director of Pathlight Belize. And Pathlight Belize has a pretty substantial footprint at this point. We have two centers, one in Belmopan and one in Belize City. And from those centers, we run our after-school program and our teacher training program. And for the teacher training program, we have these satellites, these centers in all districts that aid with the teacher training program. But in Belize City and Belmopan, we have these after-school programs that support the students after school. We have 160 students today in the program, and they go there for all kinds of support, mentorship, completing their homework, getting all their work done. That's a real good video right there of the center in Belmopan, for instance. But this wraparound, like Elvira described, this wraparound kind of experience for students is transformative. 70% of our students are on honor roll. 90% of our students complete high school. 90% of our students have a job after 6 months after graduating. So we have a very effective program. And actually, even with COVID has brought all of this into focus because we've had to stay really close to our families, really close to our students and support, and just making sure that they continue their learning journey and stay in school.
What kind of numbers are we talking about? And are the students from Belize City or Belize City and Belmopan primarily because of the two centers being there, or?
Yeah, we have ambition to expand beyond Belize City and Belmopan, but in Belize City, I mean, it's a near 50-50 split across the 160 students or so that we have. And we, from a student, and in terms of the schools they go to, they end up at St. Catherine's, St. John's, the schools that you would expect in Belize City and Belmopan. They go to Comprehensive or Methodist High School. They also go to Nazarene and AP York. So we support the students coming alongside their being in school in Belize and just give them this wraparound experience.
How do you identify the students for the program?
Yeah, in fact, we just completed that last week. We have a fairly rigorous system. We look at your test scores. We interview the families. We look at essay writing, so you do have to do a submission. We go through a whole recruitment process by engaging with all the schools. So in Belize City, whether it's Holy Redeemer or Lord of the Wade, Queen Square Anglican, Salvation Army, St. Ignatius, in Cayo, St. Margaret's, Armenia, Las Flores, Cotton Tree. We work closely with these schools to get students to be aware of the application process. And we had over 150 students that applied for this season. We're probably going to select about 30 scholarships out of it. So it's about 1 in 5 that actually receive a scholarship. But the scholarship program is comprehensive and very effective.
Well, of course, my conversation with you must continue, but right now, I need to take a break. So we're going to continue the dialogue about Pathlight just after we return. Welcome back to Dialogue with the Diaspora. Diane Haylock here with you again. And my guests tonight are Elvira Mendez and Irving Henderson, board members of Pathlight International. Before the break, Elvira, we were discussing the teacher training program. Can you now tell us about the Sponsorship Plus, which is geared towards the students? We started to talk about the recruitment of the students, but what is the essence, the nature of that program?
So as I mentioned earlier, the Scholarship Plus program is an entire wraparound model where we would use a multi-modal approach. And the students, like Arf had mentioned, and of course you mentioned on the recruitment process, whereby we provide them with the mentorship, with the tutoring, the academic and personal counseling, and character formation. It's an overall financial support system whereby it will help them academically, economically, and spiritually. Now, one of the hallmarks of this program is its leadership initiatives. And these exposes students to civic engagement and technological innovation opportunities. For example, the girls in the leadership program are enrolled in a STEM for Girls project, and that builds their capacity for engaging in non-traditional subject areas. And interestingly, this STEM project is coordinated by Pathlight's teacher training program in collaboration with experts in the US. So as it is right now, in 2021, we will be graduating 49 students, and out of them, 29 of them will be going to college or sixth form. Our students currently attend Edward P. York, Nazarene, Haloti, St. Catherine's Academy, St. John's College, Comprehensive, Methodist High School. And we also have students that go abroad. They have also attended international, I think there's one in Mexico, the Universidad Modelo in Mexico, and one went to University World College. So as it is, you will note that our students, and our data listing of all our numbers, most of them are on their honor roll. They are all excellent students, dedicated to excel.
What do you imagine some of the lives of some of these students would have been like if they did not have this, the opportunity to participate in this program?
It's sad when you see that there are some kids with high potential and the family does not have the financial resource for them to continue their education. So most of them would fall out of school, teenage pregnancy, into drugs and violence, and the community on a whole will be affected. So when you invest in education, you're actually investing in the development of a nation. And that's one of Pathlight's core initiatives, for us to help our future leaders.
Mm-hmm. What has been the response of the students as well as their parents in this program? What has been some of the concrete responses you've had?
We've had several, and I think we had some videos that we had sent earlier, and if people visit our website, which is pathlightinternational.org, you can see the testimonies of all our students that have graduated and how come they are very, very appreciative of the support that Pathlight and its sponsors has given to them. It's really life-changing. You're transforming families, communities. So it's not only the student. You have to look at the extended support that comes around that.
Yeah, if I could just add on that, I mean, I think we have our graduation coming up on June 5th. As Elvira mentioned, we have 49 students graduating on that day, but our graduations are epic. I mean, there's just deep appreciation for many of these families. This will be their first child that actually is completing high school or sixth form and going on to more advanced studies, and it's transformative for the families. They're very intense experiences in terms of how appreciative the students are and how appreciative the families are. But for us at Pathlight, we think about this in terms of national transformation. We know that charting a different path for one student has, to what Elvira was saying, has this knock-on impact for the entire family. And that's what we're very focused on, because that could completely change outcomes.
Irv and Elvira, what would you say are some of the most important lessons you have learned so far from implementing this program?
Yeah, I think COVID brought a lot of this into hyper-focus. I would say for the students, the number one thing we did was we stayed in touch. There were periods, of course, because they could not be in school, being in touch with them, giving them remote access. We paid for data access for our kids. And some of it is even more, on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, even more physiological. We provided food for our families in the midst of the pandemic. And this was transformative because it provided a floor and a place where people can begin to build from. And beyond that, I would say the after-school programs, the ability for students to go before they get home, because when they get home, they may have to do chores and other things that they would distract them from school, particularly if you're in a family where none of the family members have gone on to advanced studies. It's just not a priority. And so that's part of our own agreement when we come into the arrangement with the family, that they would be very supportive. So the number one thing we've learned is the importance of mentorship and staying in touch and grinding out that process of encouraging the students to stay in contact. Elvira, you may want to share about our teacher training, because that we've had massive lessons there as well in COVID in the use of technology.
I was going to say, COVID also allowed us to quickly adapt. When everybody went online, we also had to adapt and use the technology to provide the teacher training sessions through the virtual learning platforms. And just to note that in 2020, the participation of the teachers increased tremendously. Alone in 2020, we have trained over 1,000 teachers, and most of them were enrolled on the digital learning for teachers, which allowed them to also embrace the technology that they had to use to teach their students to use technology. So it was really transformative, and we had to adapt quickly.
I guess many of those teachers had to adapt to using the technology, itself, no?
That is correct.
Yeah, I mean, at the very beginning, you find yourself doing all the baseline training about, you have to establish rules of engagement at the top of these sessions so people have the right protocol to engage remotely. But I think there's a strategic question in all of this, right? I mean, the way in this season, what's very clear to us at Pathlight is there is an opportunity for us to scale the way we think about training. It doesn't always have to be in-person physical. You can have much larger scale in some combination of physical presence and virtual for continuous learning. We also can apply technology in a way to be able to track and encourage and get teachers trained up over time. One of the things that we're doing at Pathlight as well is we're taking all these training programs, and in partnership with one of the universities in the States, Indiana Wesleyan University, we're creating what we call these stackable credits, where you can go all the way to a bachelor's degree. And we think that's also going to be transformative for teacher training.
Wow, that is amazing. So how would you say you measure success for the teacher training program and Sponsor Plus?
Yeah, so Sponsor Plus is pretty easy, right? I mean, we manage to some tight benchmarks, 70%, and this is individual. This wraparound that Elvira describes is comprehensive, right? We're paying for your tuition, your uniforms, your books. We're staying with you in the journey to complete school. And our metrics are we push for 70% on the honor roll, 90% completion of high school, 90% employment post graduation. We stay close to the students in our cohorts to manage to that outcome. And so that's pretty effective. For the teacher training program, all teachers in Belize have credits that they have to meet. And being able to do that in some virtual context puts us right alongside a core strategy for the government in order to increase the training for teachers. So that's actually quite in line and easily measurable in terms of the credits that you've passed, taken and passed, and how you track those over time. So for us, the metrics are very clear. And really for us, the question going forward is, how do we get even more scale than we have? Pathlight operates on a budget of about 1.4 million US dollars every year. And we have an opportunity to significantly expand what we do through collaboration and participation. Elvira will work, of course, the IDB and the OES and the World Bank and the UNESCO and all the agencies, but there's also an opportunity for Belizeans to participate alongside. Inside Pathlight, we have what's called a 100% promise. All the money we raise go to fund the students. And we do this by having designed in the way Pathlight is structured, 100% promise, which means that we have a handful of donors that pay for all our administrative expenses. And that is quite powerful in terms of the dollar spent and the effectiveness to the students and the teachers.
So you would say that the program at this particular point in time is fairly sustainable financially? We like where we are in terms of a trajectory, yes, and we want to expand our different sources of funding. But yeah, we have a good scale. Because that's quite a hefty amount there you have had to generate, I suppose, from year to year, no?
Yeah, we have about 300 donors that come alongside us every year that care about the outcome for students. And I think when I think about the Belizean Diaspora, which by the way, Elvira and I were so excited to be a part of this program. For all the Belizeans that are out there watching this program, you have an opportunity if you care about education and educating the next generation of Belizeans, we have a platform that you can do that. And so to your question, Diane, I think, we have good scale at the current budget, but we can double, triple, 10 times what we're doing in terms of having effectiveness. If we can move graduation rates to 90% and make that a universal application, that is transformative to our country.
Indeed. So how can people make contact if they want to get involved or contribute to this very, very exciting program?
Go ahead, Elvira.
Yeah, it's actually pretty easy for our diaspora to contribute. As I mentioned earlier, we have an easy, friendly website where you just go to pathlightinternational.org, and there's the button for you to donate. There's also several fundraising events that are coming up. We do two primary ones everywhere, and the first one is the Back to School campaign that we do in the summer, and we do the end of year campaign during the holidays. But coming up right now is a speaker series, and we will provide more information once we get a date and the speaker set. But we would like to ask our diaspora to look out for all the initiatives that Pathlight engages on. They can also join our Beacon program, where it allows you to support a cohort of students or a student in a particular school. And we make it very flexible to work with you to see which part of the country you would like to help. And we really, of course, those that have access to international grants, to partner with us. So it's really, it's endless, the amount of support that we can get. And we work.
Elvira, Elvira, one update on that. I spoke to, so Diane, Dr. Zabané is speaking on June 3rd. Elvira just mentioned our Pathlight speaker series. He's speaking to our donors on the US side on June 3rd as a part of a conversation with the Diaspora. So we're very, very excited about his participation in that program.
Excellent. What an amazing program. And you know, it fascinates me because it is so holistic. Because, you know, a lot of time very good programs are started. But if you do not take the whole picture into consideration, you end up having some excellent modules, parts of the program, that end up not being able to truly accomplish its potential, because you have to look at the overall circumstances of your beneficiaries in the program. And this is, for me, truly amazing. Elvira, any final words before we wrap up?
Yes. So Pathlight aims to expand its initiatives in Belize, but in order to do so, we have to strengthen our partnership with the government, with international agencies, and to our viewers, the Belizean diaspora. So we are seeking for increased donations to fund our 2021 initiatives. We want to expand our teacher training program to exceed the 1,500 teachers. And in order to do that, we need all the generous support that we can get. So we would like to encourage our Belizean diaspora to join our cause and to collaborate with us. Pathlight is committed to the children in Belize to receive a quality education. And investing in education is key to see our Belize society. As I mentioned earlier, by investing in a child, you're also investing in a family and the development of our beautiful country. I'd like to leave you guys with a quote. The great Mahatma Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world."
Indeed.
We encourage Belizeans to make a meaningful change in the lives of our children and teachers in Belize.
Indeed. Irvin, how about you?
Enough said. I all that Elvira just said. Yeah, I mean, listen, we are, when I think about where we're going to be in 5 years with the support of everybody that's listening to this program tonight, I would say we have an opportunity to train every teacher in the country and to have a significant impact on outcomes for a massive percentage of the students in the country through wraparound education. Wraparound education support is transformative to student outcome, and we would love for you to join us in the journey.
Irvin and Elvira, I am sure that I speak for every Belizean watching when I say we are most grateful for what you're doing with this program to provide opportunities for teachers and students to realize their full potential. And in so doing, contribute to Belize's development. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We wish you continued success with this program.
Thank you.
Viewers, we will take our final ad break and be right back. Thank you for staying tuned into Dialogue with the Diaspora. I continue to be impressed and inspired by the many Belizeans all over this world who are committed to making their contributions to the development of our people and our country. Our guests tonight, Irvin and Elvira, shared with us an outstanding program. And so I will wrap up by summarizing what Pathlight seeks to accomplish. Through its investments in children's education, Pathlight's efforts have a multiplier effect by educating children, improving teacher education, and supporting school infrastructure. Pathlight contributes to reducing adolescent pregnancy, increasing literacy, and reducing youth recruitment into gangs. This contributes to citizen security and makes cities more sustainable while simultaneously increasing literacy and building skills for employment and sustainable livelihoods of the most vulnerable adolescent males and females in our Belize. On that note, I will sign off for now, but we will be back again next Thursday at 7 p.m. right here on CBTV and of course on Facebook on Colorblind's page. Do enjoy the remainder of your evening. Good night and take good care.